Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something right now. When a woman chooses to live alone without boyfriends, without backup plans, without somebody in her ear, every minute of the day, that is a woman who understands her value at a level most people will never reach. See, society loves to tell women, you need somebody. You got to have somebody. You should be in a relationship by now. But a woman who stands tall, lives alone, and walks through her life with confidence is a woman who refuses to settle for anything less than what she truly deserves. When a woman lives alone, without boyfriends, without depending on anyone to fill her silence or validate her presence, she enters a league that most people never understand. This isn't a woman hiding from love or running from connection. This is a woman who understands that her peace is priceless, her space is sacred, and her energy is too expensive to hand out to people who don't know what to do with it. Living alone doesn't make her weaker. It makes her stronger. It gives her time to hear her own thoughts, trust her own instincts, and build her own identity without the noise of mixed signals and half-hearted efforts. Instead of chasing someone to complete her, she completes herself, and that is the beginning of real power. A woman like this doesn't fear solitude, she respects it. She knows that being alone is not a punishment, but a privilege. It means she doesn't allow temporary people to create permanent damage in her life. It means she doesn't entertain someone simply because she's afraid of silence. She understands that silence is where strength grows, where clarity forms, where healing happens. When a woman chooses to live alone, she's choosing purpose over pressure. She's refusing to accept crumbs just because someone thinks she should be grateful to have anything at all. She's not built for almost someday, or maybe she's built for certain, secure, and real. She's selective, not lonely. A selective woman doesn't open her door to just anyone. She doesn't give her time to a man who doesn't know how to respect it. She doesn't tie her identity to whether someone texts her back or acknowledges her worth. She's learned that not everyone deserves access to her life, and the moment she realized that, everything changed. Living alone taught her discernment, the ability to choose quality over proximity. Anyone can have someone in their life, but not everyone can say that the people in their life contribute to their growth. She doesn't want just company, she wants compatibility. She doesn't want attention, she wants intention. She doesn't want someone to stand next to her, she wants someone who stands with her. Her peace is her priority. When a woman lives alone, she learns the beauty of waking up without stress, without arguments, without confusion. She learns the warmth of her own routine, the calm of her own rhythm. She builds a home that reflects her soul. Organized, calm, joyful, steady. She locks her door at night knowing that everything in her life is aligned with her spirit because she carefully curated it. No one is slamming doors. No one is raising their voice. No one is draining her emotionally. Peace becomes her oxygen, and she refuses to let anyone take it from her. This kind of woman becomes magnetic without even trying. Men see her walking confidently with her head held high, and they notice something different. She doesn't chase, she doesn't beg, she doesn't attach herself to potential. She knows what she brings to the table and doesn't waste energy proving it. When men meet a woman like this, they know instantly that they cannot play with her. They can't show up with confusion. They can't lead her on. They can't treat her like an option. She's not the type of woman who waits around for someone to realize her worth. She knows her worth before they even open their mouth. And it's that confidence that makes her unforgettable. A woman who lives alone grows in ways people don't always see. She learns to rely on herself emotionally, financially, spiritually. She becomes her own cheerleader, her own comfort, her own motivation. She handles her bills, her dreams, her struggles, her victories with her own two hands. She's not waiting for someone to rescue her or make her life easier. She becomes the hero of her own story. And that kind of self-sufficient spirit can shake the whole world. People admire her strength, but what they don't see is the discipline behind it. The nights she prayed, the days she worked, the boundaries she set, the emotions she controlled. Her strength didn't come from men liking her. It came from her liking herself. And because she likes herself, she chooses differently. She doesn't fall for sweet words. She watches for consistent actions. She doesn't get impressed by a man's potential. She observes his character. She doesn't sacrifice her standards just to say she has somebody. She knows that one wrong person can disrupt everything she built. So she waits, not out of fear, but out of wisdom. She understands that loneliness is not the absence of people. Loneliness is the presence of the wrong person. And she refuses to let the wrong person inside her life ever again. A woman like this has a presence that makes others step up or step back. Men who aren't serious step back because they know she can't be fooled. Men who are strong, grounded, and respectful step up because they recognize her as a rare kind of woman. She attracts better because she became better. And even when love does come her way, she loves from strength, not desperation. She knows she doesn't need a man. She chooses one. And the kind of love that's chosen, not needed, is the kind that lasts. Living alone has given her a foundation that no relationship can shake. She knows who she is. She knows what she stands for. She knows what she will and will not tolerate. And because of that, she doesn't enter relationships weak. She enters them whole. A whole woman is a powerful woman, and a powerful woman changes every room she walks. When a woman decides to live alone without boyfriends, without entertaining situationships, without letting anyone distract her from her purpose, she steps into a strength most people never truly learn. The world often misunderstands her, thinking she's closed off or too picky or too independent. But the truth is, she's simply awakened. She's awakened to her worth, her boundaries, her peace, and her future. She has learned the difference between being alone and being lonely. And once she discovered that solitude can be one of the most empowering places a woman can grow, she stopped settling for anything that dimmed her light. This woman understands that being selective is not a flaw, it is a filter that removes the men who play games, the men who offer confusion, the men who don't come with consistency, effort, or respect. She has seen enough to know that not every man who smiles at her is good for her. Not every man who wants access deserves access. And not every man who says he cares is capable of loving her in a healthy way. She's learned that a peaceful life is better than a chaotic relationship. And that lesson alone is worth more than any romantic attention she could receive. Living alone gives her a clarity she never had before. Her mornings are hers. She wakes up without stress, without arguments lingering from the night before, without the emotional roller coaster of wondering where she stands. She eats breakfast in peace, plans her goals in silence, and builds her dreams without distraction. Her environment becomes a reflection of her spirit, calm, centered, intentional. She begins to understand the power of choosing herself. Her home becomes her sanctuary, not a battlefield. Her thoughts become her guidance, not someone else's confusion. And with every day that passes, she becomes more comfortable in her own skin, more confident in her own decisions, and more in love with her own company. A woman who lives alone also learns the power of emotional independence. She doesn't need someone to validate her, uplift her, or complete her. She becomes her own support system. She motivates herself. She comforts herself. She celebrates herself. She learns how to stand tall even on her hard days. And when she realizes she can give herself what she once begged from the wrong people, that realization changes everything. She no longer fears walking away. She no longer fears losing someone. She no longer fears starting over, because she now knows that the only person she truly needs to depend on is herself. And she has proven that she is reliable. And here's the thing, when a woman reaches this level of inner strength, men feel it. They may not say it out loud, but they sense her power. They sense that she is not waiting for them. She sense that she is not impressed by bare minimum gestures. They sense that she cannot be controlled, manipulated, or deceived. They sense that she is self-made, self-focused, and self-respecting. Men who are used to casual attention won't know what to do with her because she doesn't respond to crumbs. She doesn't get attached to potential. She doesn't fall for sweet words without matching effort. She sees through games before they even begin. Her independence becomes magnetic, not because she is trying to attract anyone, but because confidence, peace, and self-worth have a glow that cannot be manufactured. A man who meets her instantly recognizes that she is not the type of woman who will tolerate disrespect or inconsistencies. He knows he must come correct or not come at all. And even the wrong men, those who aren't ready, still look at her with admiration because deep down they know she is rare. But this woman doesn't live alone just for strength. She lives alone because it allows her to grow. She evolves mentally, emotionally, spiritually. She learns new skills, explores new passions, creates new habits. She invests in herself, her health, her education, her career, her happiness. She builds a life she is proud of, a life she doesn't need to escape from. She becomes the type of woman who doesn't wait for someone to bring her flowers. She buys her own. She doesn't wait for someone to take her out. She treats herself. She doesn't wait for love to make her life meaningful. She fills her life with meaning all on her own. And as she grows, she becomes more mindful of the energy she allows into her world. She doesn't open her door to negativity, laziness, or inconsistency. She doesn't allow someone to disrupt her spirit just because they want attention. She doesn't let anyone enter her life who cannot contribute to her peace. Her standards rise not because she's demand, but because she finally understands her value. She realizes that she has spent too many years giving chances to people who didn't deserve them, and now she promises herself that she will never go backwards again. The truth is, a woman who lives alone becomes a woman who chooses love, not out of fear, not out of loneliness, but out of intention. When the right man eventually appears, she will love him, but she will not lose herself in him. She will support him, but she will not sacrifice her dreams for his comfort. She will stand beside him, but she will not shrink to make him taller. She will give her heart, but only to a man who has earned it through consistency, respect, and genuine effort. Her independence does not make her cold. It makes her wise. It makes her whole. It makes her capable of giving and receiving love in a healthier, fuller way. She doesn't need a relationship to feel secure. She brings security into the relationship. She doesn't need a man to build a home. She already built one. She doesn't need someone to define her. She defines her own life. When a woman chooses to live alone without boyfriends, without chasing validation, without needing someone to constantly reassure her, she steps into a version of herself that is powerful, grounded, and unshakable. People may look at her and assume she's missing something, but the truth is, she's discovering everything. She's discovering her peace, her potential, her independence, and most importantly, her identity. A woman who lives alone learns who she truly is without the noise of someone else's opinions, moods, or inconsistencies drifting into her world. She becomes her own priority, her own project, and her own source of strength. Living alone teaches her discipline and clarity that relationships often interrupt when they aren't with the right person. She wakes up in a home that reflects her spirit, not someone else's chaos. She spends her time building her dreams instead of holding together relationships that drain her energy. She learns to sit with her thoughts, trust her instincts, and make decisions without needing permission. She realizes that peace is not just something you stumble upon. It's something you create deliberately, with boundaries, with intentions, with self-respect. And she becomes selective. Not because she's too picky, but because she finally understands the cost of letting the wrong person into her life. She knows how easily stress creeps in when someone doesn't value her time. She knows how quickly her progress can be interrupted by someone who doesn't have their life together. She knows how dangerous it is to give her heart to a man who doesn't even understand his own. Living alone teaches her to stop settling. She refuses to let loneliness pressure her into relationships that don't honor her. She understands that being alone is far better than pretending to be loved. Her space becomes sacred. Her home becomes a sanctuary of peace where every detail is chosen with care. She cooks what she wants, decorates how she wants, plans her days exactly how they align with her goals. She doesn't compromise her comfort. She doesn't tiptoe around someone's moods. She doesn't shrink herself to avoid conflict. She doesn't apologize for taking up space in her own life. She breathes freely, and that freedom becomes a kind of happiness she never felt before. This woman grows emotionally strong because she has no one to hide behind and no one to blame. She holds herself accountable. She learns to manage her emotions in healthy ways. She becomes aware of her patterns, her triggers, and her desires. She gains emotional maturity, something many people never learn because they constantly distract themselves with relationships instead of understanding themselves. But she faces herself, improves herself, rebuilds herself. And as she grows, she becomes a woman who cannot be shaken by simple attention, temporary affection, or empty promises. Men notice this kind of woman. They notice her confidence, her stability, her unbothered spirit. They sense that she is whole, not searching for someone to complete her. They sense that she is secure in herself, not desperate for attachment. And that's why she becomes magnetic without even trying. Men admire her discipline. They admire her grace. They admire her ability to be alone without losing herself. A woman who lives alone gives off an aura that says, I choose my peace first. Men who aren't serious can feel instantly that she won't tolerate foolishness. But she doesn't live alone to impress men. She lives alone because she is cultivating a life that reflects her standards. She is learning the things she likes, not the things someone else told her she should like. She is learning to set boundaries that honor her soul. She is learning to walk away from anything that feels heavy, draining, or confusing. She is learning to trust herself again after years of giving that trust away too easily. She is learning that she is whole on her own. With each month that passes, her independence grows thicker and her confidence grows brighter. Her life becomes something she built with intention, effort, and sacrifice. She realizes she is capable of so much more than she ever knew. She pays her bills, handles her responsibilities, and solves her own problems. She becomes the woman who doesn't wait for someone to save her. She saves herself. And when you save yourself long enough, you stop tolerating people who show up only to take. People begin to misunderstand her strength. They think she doesn't want love. They think she's too independent. They think she's too guarded. But the truth is, she isn't closed off. She's cautious. She isn't afraid of love. She's afraid of losing her peace. She isn't avoiding relationships. She's avoiding repeating mistakes that cost her pieces of herself. She knows now that love must add to her life, not interrupt it. She knows now that she deserves consistency, not confusion. She knows now that love should feel safe, not exhausting. A woman who lives alone has high standards, not because she is demanding, but because she finally stopped lowering her standards to accommodate men who didn't deserve her. She now waits for a man who is emotionally mature, mentally stable, spiritually aligned, and respectful. A man who understands her strength, not intimidated by it. A man who supports her growth, not competes with her. A man who sees her peace not as a threat, but as a privilege. And when she meets that man, if she chooses to, she will love from a place of abundance, not emptiness. She will give without losing herself. She will commit without becoming dependent. She will support him without sacrificing her identity because she knows she can stand alone. She will never fear standing with someone again. This is what makes her powerful. This is what makes her different. This is what makes her unforgettable. A woman who lives alone without boyfriends becomes a woman who chooses her life, shapes her future, and protects her peace with a strength that few ever achieve. When a woman lives alone without boyfriends, without needing someone beside her just to feel complete, she becomes a different kind of powerful. She becomes a woman who understands that her value does not come from whether a man chooses her, texts her, or validates her. Her value comes from who she becomes when she has the space to grow without distraction, without drama, and without emotional turbulence caused by relationships that were never meant to last. She learns that her strength was never in who loved her, but in who she became when she loved herself enough to stand alone. This kind of woman begins to see life from a higher level. She learns that solitude is not emptiness, it is elevation. It is a space where she can finally hear her own voice after years of drowning in the noise of other people's expectations. She reconnects with herself. She learns her own preferences, her dreams, her boundaries, her ambitions. She becomes more aware of what truly matters to her. She stops living for approval and starts living for authenticity. And with every day that she spends alone, she becomes more aligned with her purpose, living alo. Nate teaches her the kind of peace that comes only when no one else is controlling the temperature of her emotions. She wakes up without checking her phone for reassurance. She sleeps without worrying about someone's inconsistency. She spends her days in a rhythm that matches her soul, not someone else's chaos. She listens to her intuition. She protects her energy. She builds her life with intention rather than impulse. Her peace becomes so precious that she guards it the way others guard treasure. She also becomes selective, and that selectiveness comes from wisdom, not fear. She has learned through experience that letting the wrong man into her world can cost her her joy, her confidence, her stability, and sometimes even her identity. That kind of lesson stays with a woman. It teaches her to slow down, to observe, to choose with clarity instead of longing. She no longer confuses attention with affection, effort with intention, or charm with character. She can see through false promises because she has lived through them. She can recognize emotional immaturity because she has healed from it. She can sense inconsistency because she has untangled herself from it before. As she builds her independence, something shifts in her spirit. She stops looking for someone to carry her and realizes she can carry herself. She becomes her own safety net. Her confidence grows because she sees that she can survive storms alone and still rise. She learns new skills because she has no choice but to learn them. She becomes financially responsible because she understands that her stability belongs in her own hands. She becomes emotionally balanced because she has no one to blame and no one to distract her from self-reflection. This is the kind of growth that cannot be taken away from her, no matter who enters or leaves her life in the future. Men notice this growth, even if they never say it. They notice the way she walks, not fast, not slow, but steady, grounded, sure of herself. They notice the way she speaks, not trying to impress, not chasing approval, but standing firmly in her truth. They notice the way she carries herself, not desperate, not eager, not seeking attachment, but peaceful and whole. And that wholeness makes her magnetic in a way that cannot be faked. She doesn't try, she doesn't perform, she doesn't pretend. Her confidence is quiet, her power is calm, her aura speaks louder than her words. And here's what makes her truly remarkable. She doesn't use her independence to push love away. She simply refuses to accept anything less than what aligns with her standards. She doesn't need a man for emotional rescue, financial support, or personal validation. If she chooses a partner in the future, it will be because she wants to, not because she needs to. The difference is massive. When a woman wants love but doesn't need it, she becomes more secure, more balanced, more aware. She doesn't cling, she doesn't chase, she doesn't lose herself. She loves with clarity, not fear. She also starts to attract a different kind of man, not the ones who want someone to control, nor the ones who look for a woman to heal them, nor the ones who want convenience instead of commitment. She attracts men who respect themselves, men who recognize her strength, men who have purpose, discipline, and emotional depth. Because a woman with peace will never tolerate a man with chaos. A woman who is whole will never uplift a man who depends on her to feel complete. A woman who has built her life will only welcome someone who is capable of building alongside her. But she doesn't rush. She understands timing now. She understands alignment. She understands that love is not something you chase. It's something that meets you when you are ready. She spends her alone time becoming the best version of herself. Not for a man, but for her own soul. She invests in her passions. She improves her habits. She heals her wounds. She upgrades her mindset. And in doing so, she becomes a woman who can stand in any room with grace, confidence, and dignity. She no longer fears being alone. She fears losing herself again. She no longer fears not being loved. She fears loving someone who isn't aligned with her spirit. She no longer fears starting over. She fears repeating cycles that once hurt her. Living alone gave her that wisdom, that clarity, that strength. This woman is not avoiding life. She is preparing for a life that matches her standards. She is becoming the kind of woman who no longer settles, no longer apologizes for her worth, and no longer allows anyone to disrupt what she has built. She has discovered herself. And in that discovery, She has found a power that cannot be shaken by anyone's presence or absence.